Henri felt a wave of fatigue as his heavy boots trudged through the vast, dry expanse that lay before him, land known to many foreigners simply by its ancient name, Anatolia. The endless horizon seemed almost surreal against the backdrop of the setting sun, painting everything in hues of orange and pink. His armor clanked softly with each step he took, a constant reminder that even as his body ached from thirst and heat, there was no escape. Every movement echoed through this alien landscape where craggy mountains met the sea like guardians to an enigmatic land. The sun beat down on Henri's back with relentless force, unyielding even as he sought shade under a solitary olive tree, whose leaves whispered secrets in his ear when caught by passing breezes. His breath came out slowly and shallowly through pursed lips. The scorching heat seemed to sap away at him faster than it could melt this stubborn earth before them. Yet he marches onward with a determination that felt both noble and misplaced in these parts so far from France's rolling hills. Henri paused for but an instant as his eyes caught sight of the horizon one last time, land stretching out endlessly toward where sky met sea until it blurred into nothingness. Then, heeding a distant call to prayer that seemed both solemn and otherworldly in this stark landscape, Henri turned back towards France. He was on a pilgrimage born from faith alone, but driven by duty or crusade for the Holy Land, where every step forward felt like an eternity across sand-dusted paths underfoot. As he walked with purpose through fields of sunflowers, turning their faces away from his advancing figure, Henri let thoughts drift to Jerusalem's distant bell towers that chimed on holy days and night prayers alike. How those haunting sounds now seemed like echoes across time itself, promises whispered into the wind for him alone. He wondered at such a city where history was etched not just in stone but woven into every corner of daily life, from grand cathedrals with soaring spires to humble abodes that crouch low against earth's embrace as if keeping secrets close by heartbeat's pulse. In his mind he saw the city or tapestry rich and vibrant beyond any dreamer's wildest reveries, a place where faith was lived out in every stone facade that rose from ground kissed by ancient hands. Here would lie sacred sites untouchable save for those with hearts pure enough to seek them. The very air of this land seemed imbued with the holy dust carried upon windswept praisers, stark contrast against his current reality, where each gust threatened more than just dry heat, but perhaps also brought forth memories that he had long hoped would remain forgotten in France's embrace. Dreams once cherished, now distant as stars obscured by daylight. Yet even Henri found himself unable to turn back fully from his vow. It was a promise made with conviction born of faith, alone a sacred oath that the Lord himself had called him forth for this holy quest among foreign sands and through lands unknown, all in search of redemption. The thought gnawed at Henri's mind as he traversed these unfamiliar territories where each step forward seemed to take him further from home into a reality painted with colors not his own. Deep red earth beneath boots weary against cool grasses that whispered tales older than any in the land of his birth. The sun continued its relentless arc across the sky, and Henri's skin bore witness or map charting where it kissed stone walls or shadows from boughs above. He could feel himself changing with every mile traveled on this foreign path that led him inexorably toward his holy destination. In these moments of solitude amidst the wideness, Henri found a strange peace or sense within being so profoundly alone, yet not entirely lonely, as though somewhere just beyond sight there lay others who shared similar journeys across vast distances to reach this sacred cause célèbre that had captured hearts and souls back in France. For now was the time for Henri, a humble servant of God whose life's work would be etched into history by his feet upon these dusty roads. He understood only too well how fragile everything seemed, world itself, hanging ever so tenuously on threads spun from faith and ambition. Every mile traveled felt like a testament to the belief that even one man's journey could echo through eternity. Henri's journey had been arduous since he left his homeland behind. Each step forward was a silent promise to himself and those who followed that France would not be forgotten amidst this great conflict known as World War I. As night descended upon the world of men, Henri found solace underneath an ancient oak whose gnarled branches seemed like arms stretching out in welcome for weary souls seeking rest from their relentless march through history. The earth beneath him had become a companion as much as any friend he might have back home. The red soil was rich with stories of generations past, and Henry felt himself partaking in that lineage each time his feet touched its surface on this foreign continent or place now colored by strife rather than the vibrant hues of liberty. In these quiet moments before sleep claimed him fully, he would often reflect upon how strange it was to find peace amid chaos. A man's heart could be so full yet feel as if there were nothing within its chambers save for emptiness or paradox not lost on Henry, who knew that the world around him pulsed with untold stories of love and loss. The whispers of grasses had become a gentle lullaby, their rustling secrets shared in soft murmurs, as if to soothe his spirit, before surrendering it completely into slumber. For even amidst turmoil there existed pockets where nature spoke directly to the soul, without words or language only Henry seemed able to comprehend with clarity. With every sunrise and each setting of its fiery orb, Henry felt as if he were stepping further from himself into a reality painted not just in colors, but feelings. His heart ached for home yet thrummed with the excitement of adventure that came wrapped within this journey's uncertainty or pilgrimage to honor those fallen and celebrate their legacy. As night after night unfolded, Henry would dreamt vividly of scenes not just from France, but also places he had never seen, landscapes painted on canvas where every mountain peak held the memory of a young soldier's courageous stand against an unseen enemy battle fought with valor in mind rather than bloodshed. Within these dreams, Henry found himself walking alongside men whose lives were intertwined by fate yet separated by oceans. Each shared laughter and sorrow as though they had known one another all their days, long on this earth, beneath the endless sky or testament to the unspoken bond between comrades in arms. Amidst his reverie, Henry would sometimes hear faint echoes of distant thunder that seemed more like applause than a forewarning. Nature itself acknowledged and honored their presence on this foreign shore, a silent witness to the sacrifice etched into every mile traveled by foot or horseback. When dawn finally broke, painting light upon his face as he rose from slumber's embrace, Henry was reminded that time marches ever forward, for each day spent in service of others meant a chapter added not just to personal history, but also the annals of nations, or narrative steeped with hope and fear intermingled like watercolor on parchment. As he journeyed forth, Henry carried within him an unwavering faith that though this world might crumble beneath waves or Ashrel's dark veil, there existed something greater beyond the horizon, a promise made by those who came before, and a belief in futures yet to be written where men could once again stand tall under skies clear of war. In these moments, when night bade farewell for another day ahead fraught with uncertainty but also brimming possibilities, Henry held close the conviction that even one man's journey had its echoes across eternity, or humble servant finding his place amidst legends being born and stories winding down. For now was a time when every step taken could lead to revelations not just about himself, but also human nature in extremis. Henry knew that even as he fought against the tides of an unfathomable war, it was essential never to lose sight of who one truly is beneath armor and uniform. And so with each sunrise came a renewal or chance for old wounds to be salved by fresh deeds done in honor. Henry understood that his life's work upon these dusty roads would resonate through the ages, becoming but another verse sung within an epic ballad of resilience and spirit. As he lay beneath a canopy of stars, one evening, with only silence for company save whispers from leaves above to commune in shared solitude, a man realized that despite walking alone across miles untouched by Henry's breathing slowed as he watched the horizon swell with a palette of orange and red hues, signaling yet another sunset on his weary face or visage etched by both time and toil beneath this unforgiving sky that bore witness to countless stories. Each day began much like it ended, in contemplation under the vast embrace of twilight's last gleam before nightfall reclaimed its dominion, a period when Henry allowed himself moments with his memoirs not as an escape from reality, but rather through them for strength and solace amidst chaos. It was during these dusky hours that he remembered the day at Montmorency. It had started like any other morning in those halcyon days before turmoil took rout, when Henry's world seemed a simpler place of camaraderie among soldiers with shared laughter and dreams underpinned by bonds unbroken. The sunrise on that day was not just another burst of light, but an omen he would come to see as the harbinger for his life's most defining moment or call to destiny, when Henry, a mere boy with ambitions yet unknown and fears still nestled in the crevices of youthful naivete, was thrust into war's unfathomable depth. Henri had always felt an uncanny affinity for nature's timeless cycles. They resonated within his very soul as he understood that life itself ebbed and flowed with the rhythm akin to seasons, changing times of bloom followed by periods of harvest, growth then dormancy. In this endless cycle lay Henri's unspoken truth. In moments where all seemed bleakest, there was always an opportunity for renewal if one could but find it within themselves and the world around them to believe so. As he traced his memories of that fateful day forward through time's malleable strands with a mindful reverence, Henri recognized how far removed from those innocent beginnings had become each facet of his existence on this journeyer path not just paved by the trials and tribulations he encountered as both soldier and survivor, but also one that was uniquely molded into itself through experiences etched with pain, resilience, loss, hope, courage. In these moments when Henri reflected upon his past struggles, under a cloak of night's comforting darkness or blanket woven from the threads of all he had endured and overcome throughout this relentless quest for peace in an age where war seemed ever present like shadows at sunset, waiting just beyond sight to reemerge with unpredictable intent, he found solace knowing that even amidst despair's desolate embrace lay the potential, within each soul touched by suffering, capacity not only for healing but also growth when nurtured tenderly and without judgment from compassionate hands or listening hearts offering silent support during times of great trials. Henri often wondered whether any individual could stand as an outpost against humanity's darkest inclinations, or lone soldier whose actions rippled through time, inspiring others to strive toward unity and understanding beyond the immediate confines which once defined him or anyone else's world. Despite all odds stacking precariously like a house of cards around his neck in these uncertain times, when each day presented its own setback against progress towards lasting harmony within society, Henri held firmly onto this notion or belief that the collective will for peace and respect could transcend even war's most relentless grasp. As he lay beneath a canopy of stars, one evening, with only silence as his companion save whispers from leaves above to commune in shared solitude, Henri realized it was through every step taken across these dusty roads that he had traversed footprints imprinted upon the earth's skin, marking both literal and metaphorical. As dawn painted streaks of gold on a canvas untouched by night's shadow for centuries, Henri felt an affinity between his own spirit journey and those ancient tales where heroes emerged from darkness into light. In this age marred with conflict that seemed as endless as time itself, a world teetering precariously upon the brink of despair before each sunrise offered another chance for redemption or downfall, it was Henri's unwavering resolve to not only survive but also thrive within these trying times, which would ultimately define his legacy. Henri had been born into a lineage steeped in valor and honor, a heritage that whispered of ancestral battles fought with sword drawn under in Chapter 4 of Henri's journey through a world on its knees under warfare's weighty hand. It was dawn that brought more than just light to his eyesight, unveiled an inner clarity born from nighttime contemplations and silent communions with nature. As the sun ascended over mountains scarred by incessant skirmishes, Henri took solace beneath their weary peaks. They stood as ancient sentinels that had witnessed countless dawns like this one, each a bearer of fresh hope against repeated onslaughts from forces both foreign and familiar. Today was no different in the eyes of combat, yet Henri felt an unspoken promise stirring within his heart's chamber as he watched children scamper across battle-torn streets, their laughter cutting through was bluey shroud with a resilience that seemed to whisper directly into him. It was not just in the innocent joy of youth, but also found its echoes amongst those who had known suffering yet refused to let it define them entirely, a silent pact made between past and future, strength forged from shared experiences along this arduous path toward harmony or ruin. Henri's lineage was not merely one of valor. They were guardians whose blood carried the untainted promise that even in times when darkness seemed to prevail, when shadows clawed at every corner and hope dwindled like a flickering candle against wind's relentless gust, it would be their duty, nevertheless. For Henri, this honor was not just an expectation, but also the very core of his being. He felt it as much inked into him through generations that had come before as were these bloodlines etched deeply within stone and bone alike. Beneath a sky painted with hues reminiscent of peace, Henri found himself at an ancient crossroads or place where the soil bore witness to many who sought resolution in times when no one could predict which side might falter first or last on this precipice we teeter upon. Here his ancestors had stood firmly. Here he must now stand resolutely as well, for though blood may be an inheritance of both giver and receiver alike, and the world's wounds ran deepest within it, it was also Henri's calling to rise above mere legacy in pursuit of something far greater. This morning had awakened him with a vision that seemed too divine for mortal comprehension, yet he felt its truth as if his own heartbeat resonated with the rhythm pulsating at this crossroads. Very foundation or harmonic convergence where past and future sought to meet in present's embrace. Henri knew it was here among these fractured stones that echoed footsteps of countless souls long gone, yet their intentions for peace lingered as potent whispers on the wind. He felt himself partaking not only in history, but also its unwritten chapters yet to come ere custodian chosen by destiny's own hand. As Henri paced back and forth across this hallowed ground, memories seeped through time's veil like rain upon thirsty earth. They were tales of heroes who had fought not just for their homelands, but also against the encroaching darkness that threatened to swallow all. It was a battle where light struggled mightily with night's insidious tendrils, and yet always emerged victorious not through force alone, but by weeding unity from discord's very fabric. For in this age of relentless strife, there were those who sought not just to survive within the ruins left behind, but also to rebuild them into something worthy of tomorrow's children. Henri had journeyed far and witnessed sorrows that could rend heart asunder, but here among these very stones lay his purpose anew. He was no longer merely Henri, son or descendant, but became the embodiment himself through which this shared will for tranquillity might manifest into reality. And though it seemed to him now like each step upon worn paths beneath foreign skies could be a prelude either towards peace's hallowed doorway or war's abysmal pit, Henri knew that with every footfall he took forward in the name of hope and reverence for what humanity might yet become. The air was thick with resolve as Henri stood at this crossroads or convergence not just of geography but also ideals. It was a place where dreams could be summoned forth like spirits into waking life, if one only had the courage to believe them within reach amidst despair's omnipresent shadow. And so as Henri stood in silent contemplation before this crossroads of possibilities, he could sense a subtle change within him or quiet awakening that had begun to stir since his arrival at these very stones under foreign skies. The air was thick with resolve as much as it resonated with the echoes from decades past. Where once there were only ruins and relics, now stood an opportunity for rebirth or further decay or dichotomy of potential outcomes that lay heavily upon his shoulders like a mantle woven from threads both somber and hopeful. The sun dipped lower in the western sky as Henri took deliberate steps forward into what might be considered one path after another. But to him they were not paths. Adelphi were streams of thought flowing through time's riverbed toward a confluence where future destinies could merge with present intentions. The Kabbalist's zero-D-line streets whispered tales from the wind that carried memories and murmurs alike, speaking to Henri in hushed tones about times when harmony was more than just an ideal. It had been lived by those who came before him, a world not so different as one might expect. Henri's mind wandered through these streets of history where he encountered faces that mirrored his own, eyes weary yet unbroken in their quest for peace amidst the rubble and dust of a civilization's fallback to nature, a return not just to past ways, but also forward into an age without borders or conflicts. Each step Henri took on these worn paths was both movement through time and across realities, where he could see glimmers of hope that danced like fireflies against the encroaching darkness of despair's shadow stretching out before him in every direction, a reminder of humanity's fragility. In a secluded garden overrun with wildflowers and grasses, Henri found what he sought, an oasis where once there had been laughter, chatter, the warmth of community bygone. Now only silence stood guardian to his contemplation, or silent mentor speaking volumes through its stillness. It was here that Henri first felt a stirring within himself, as if nature itself acknowledged his presence and whispered secrets into the receptive ear he had always possessed but never truly listened until this moment, when all of humanity's discord seemed to be echoing in these very petals, leaves rustling with ancient wisdom. Henri paused at a fountain where water no longer flowed, a reminder that life too ebbs and flows. Sometimes it trickles gently upon the earth's surface, as tears from eyes once filled with joy now only pools of memory within his own heart, other times rushing forth like passion, unleashed through a tempest. In this place where water had been trapped by time itself, yet could not hold back its longing for freedom and renewal, Henri felt the pull to step forward into actions that might once again allow life's essence to course freely over these stones, nurturing seeds sown within hearts still yearning, taking inspiration from nature's relentless drive towards balance even in adversity, trees growing through concrete cracks, vines embracing the decayed pillars of old structures as monuments rather than tombstones for lost eras. Henri saw his role not just to mend, but also transform. He envisioned himself walking amongst these stones, sharing stories with children and adults alike from lands untethered by past grievances or present fears. He would speak of unity in diversity as the roots that might anchor a new era into being, not just built upon rumors, but also dreams. As night began to drape its velvet mantle over this cornerstone world, Henri knew his journey was far from complete yet felt somehow fulfilled. Every step forward had been an act of faith cast against the backdrop where shadows threatened and light yearned for a chance at dawn's return. Here in these ruins now stood symbols not just of past glory, but also future possibilities, or testament that even amidst devastation there remains hope, if one only dares to believe it can take root alongside despair itself. With the moon climbing higher into its nightly arc and stars twinkling like distant lanterns, guiding a lone traveler's path, Henri whispered an oath or vow not just to himself, but for every soul he might encounter, that upon his return from this foreign soil he would carry forth the seeds of tranquillity sown within these very grounds. And though tomorrow's sunrise promised neither certainties nor guarantees, Henri understood with each breath as Henri closed his weary eyes for a brief moment of respite beneath an ancient oak that whispered age-old secrets to those who would listen. He let himself be embraced by thoughts as tranquil and deep as roots themselves, roots not only burrowing through the soil but also reaching into souls. The stars above him had begun their slow dance across the indigo night sky when Henri first arrived in this land of echoes from a time both magnificent and merciless, where even now he felt his heartbeat resonate with those long silent to the world's earnings but not its memories, that were as much part of him as they had become. Within these ruins lay mosaics fractured by time yet whole in their fragmented beauty, each piece a somber reminder and an invitation for stories like Henri's to continue threading themselves through the tapestry of humanity's shared history, a narrative that could not be stopped even as nightfall brought with it its cloak of silence. As he walked among these vestiges, his footsteps seemed lighter upon stones worn smooth by countless souls before him who had also sought to sow seeds in the barren fields beneath this land's vast canopy, where only a few resilient trees dared grow after mankind's retreat. Henri paused as he stood on what once was a grand plaza, and his fingers traced over symbols of an ancient script that danced before him, a language lost but not forgotten in its ability to inspire hope across generations, like vines reclaiming their birthplace from the grip of time. His mind wandered back centuries when such stones bore witness to a culture where artistry and expression were as revered as they had been feared, for beauty could be both shield and spear in its dual nature, a duality that now seemed less about conflict than convergence. Henri understood this dance between creation and destruction was not unique but universal. The air around him carried the scent of damp earth mixed with a freshness born from rain recently past, as though cleansing itself after every drop had whispered secrets directly into its soil, secrets that now seemed to murmur their wisdom more clearly than ever in Henri's attuned mind. With each step he took towards an unassuming stone circle at the heart of this plaza, where flickers from firelight played upon runes older than time itself. His breath grew steady and calm despite night's advance. Peace found him as surely as it had been sought by those who sat around these fires before. As he approached an ancient altar nestled within the circle's embrace, Henri felt a presence beside him, a sensation not unfamiliar but always startling when unexpected in this silent sanctuary of remembrance and restoration. Yet there was no one to be seen save for his own shadow mimicking movements on stone. It seemed as though the altar itself invited introspection, inviting Henri to lay bare secrets locked within that he had carried with him through life's relentless journey or pilgrimage of seeking and uncovering, where humanity's heart beats strongest not in its power, but in compassion for one another. Placing his palm upon the cold, worn surface of a rune that seemed to pulse with an energy as old as this land itself. Henri felt it speak directly into him, a voice from beyond time, offering solace and wisdom without words. He listened intently, even though understanding was not its intention, as if guided by ancestral hands, or perhaps simply driven by the pull of something inexplicably familiar about these stones beneath his fingertips. Henri allowed himself to be transported into visions that blurred reality's edges and painted landscapes where colors defied their names, or kaleidoscope born from a world's unyielding spirit. Time wove itself around him like the intricate patterns etched upon these very stones, telling tales of celebration and sorrow entwined so deeply that neither could be separated without feeling incomplete. Henri felt he was becoming part of this continuum or stream flowing forward despite knowing its source lay beneath layers unseen. The memories evoked by touch were not just personal but universal, echoes from lives lived with fervor under skies painted in the same hues as those before him, and yet so different. Henri knew that to honor them was his task, no to weave their essence into narratives that could be told anew. As he rose from this communion of spirit, a sense of clarity blossomed within like dawn's first light spilling over the horizon's edge. As each stone had a story locked within its age-old facade, Henri sensed them all as if they were old friends whispering in the language of touch, sharing tales only his heart could hear, tales that spanned centuries when he was but an infant cradled against Mother Earth's warm bosom. Tonight, under a sky dusted with stars like scattered diamonds upon velvet darkness, Henri allowed himself to slip between moments in time as one would step into water without pause for fear of never surfacing again. The air was cool and caressed his skin just enough that he could feel the breathing pulse of history all around him, laughter of children from a long-gone era dancing on an invisible breeze, mingling with songs carried over waves, whispered to sailors at sea by winds they never lived. The stones themselves seemed animated, as if aware that Henri was their chosen confidante for this evening's communion. He felt the presence of myriad souls long departed yet ever present in his embrace, guiding him through a narrative tapestry so vivid it threatened to consume all thought save its own creation. As dusk settled into night and stars blinked awake above, Henri's mind began weaving strands of these experiences, or loom where the threads were memories, both personal and universal. He remembered his grandfather's tales that had always filled him with wonder about this very place. Now he felt a connection to an ancient lineage steeped in reverence for nature, which shaped not just landscapes but destinies of people who lived under its watchful eye throughout the ages. Henri traced his fingers along smooth stones that had been touched by countless hands before him, hands like those of a mother gently rocking her child to sleep, or skilled artisans shaping clay into forms meant for eternity, as if they too sought solace from this world's inevitable transience. He was no longer just an observer, but had become part of the continuum that flowed through these stones, and beneath them like a river seeking its way to see a storyteller born within their ancient embrace. With each touch, he unearthed stories where joy overflowed in celebrations held under moonlit skies. Others told tales steeped with sorrow, as if the very earth cried for love lost and fortunes squandered by pride or folly. All lives that had danced upon these stones yet would soon become whispers on wings. Henri's heart ached to honor them, understanding his role was not just one of preservation but rebirth. He must carry their essence forward into narratives new and vibrant for others like him who might seek this hillside as a place where past becomes present once more. As the night deepened its hold over time itself, Henri felt an invisible thread tether his soul to these stones, for promise that they would always be here, long after he was gone, holding on to histories, both joyful and pained within their silent watch. The stars faded one by one into dawn's first light spilling across the horizon. And just as a newfound sense of clarity bloomed in Henri like flowers unfurling at daybreak, a resolve to become not only a keeper but also an ambassador for these voices, ensuring that their stories would never be lost amidst life's relentless unfolding. When the night finally surrendered its reign back into darkness and his mind's eye began retreating from visions of yesteryears to taught-ere day, when Henri could again walk among living memories as they existed in flesh, blood, and breath, he knew that he would return here often, for it was not just a place but an experience where the veil between worlds felt thinnest. As his consciousness receded from this communion of spirit back into waking life's embrace, Henri understood with certainty what must be done to write tales that honored these echoes in stone and soul alike. It, as Henri's consciousness receded from this communion of spirit back into waking life's embrace, he understood with certainty what must be done to write tales that honored these echoes in stone and soul alike, to tell the stories embedded within each crevice. It was not merely a task, but an odyssey, one where every word would carry weight as heavy as history itself. With his resolve strengthened by night's whispers now replaced with sunlight's clarity on this newfound daybreak of understanding, Henri felt ready to embark upon the journey that awaited him at dawn's first light, spilling across the horizon a quest not just for knowledge, but for legacy and preservation. The following morning found Henri once again amidst living memories as they existed in flesh, blood, and breath. He took a deep breath of crisp air before starting his work beneath an ancient oak whose roots delved deeply into the earth, where centuries had passed unnoticed by many but not forgotten stones. Around him were people from all walks of life, their stories woven seamlessly with those Henri now sought to chronicle, a tapestry rich and vibrant under his careful stewardship as keeper and ambassador for the silent watchers in stone. Within days turned into weeks, and months began intertwining themselves within tales of old tales that had once danced only on Henri's lips. During midnight musings now flowed freely onto pages with a rhythmic pulse, all their own, as he chronicled the echoes in stone. His fingers would often pause upon touching paper, memories flooding back like waves against ancient shores. These were not mere stories, but breaths given voice to stones that had long held them within silent watchfulness and gentle embrace through ages, untolder legacy of whispers from the past yearning for a future where they would be recognized. Among his most cherished memories was an encounter with Elise, whose own ancestors' history intertwined deeply with that around him in ways unexpected but undeniably significant. Henri felt it as though fates had conspired to bring them together at this very moment when he could best serve their shared and disparate tales. Her lineage traced back generations alongside the stones, her family having once laid burial upon these hallowed grounds. Her connection, that transcended mere genealogy into an intimate kinship with place itself, as Henri penned down Elise's personal saga interwoven delicately within broader community narratives. As seasons cycled through their time together, the bond between them grew stronger, for in sharing his task of preservation and honoring legacies told by stones to Henri's touching heartbeats upon paper, formed a bridge that allowed not only themselves but also future generations access into lives lived long ago. Each story was in homage, each word scribed with care, as if the ink flowed from their shared human essence itself. For what is history without its bearers? Yet, amidst this sacred endeavor of recording and revering past voices through Henri's written words, an undertaking that seemed to transcend time, uniting hearts across eras as they sought solace in each other's company amongst these living memories enveloped by the relentless unfolding life around them, a shadow lingered, a reminder of mortality and how fragile existence was against eternity's backdrop, a presence that sometimes whispered through Henri as if to caution him not just about preserving tales, but also his own finite journey amongst these stones, an ambassador's role, with the awareness that one day he too would become part of their silent watch. This understanding did not dampen spirits nor hold hands from writing. Instead, it imbued Henri's mission with a sense of urgency and purpose beyond himself, as tales were lovingly told by both living souls who bore witness to these narratives through time's passage and the very stones that had stood sentinel over them. These stories became interconnected threads in humanity's shared tapestry, each line drawn upon a parchment or whispered into Henri's ear as he transcribed with reverence and care. Their voices would live on through his diligently penned words for those willing to listen across time's expanse. As days turned, the pages of autumn leaves gave way, and winter approached like a silent spectre cloaked in frosted breath, a reminder that nature too played its part as an accomplice in this narrative woven through epochs. Henri found comfort knowing his work would stand steadfast against times. In Chapter 9 of Henri's journey through time and parchment lay before him a new challenge, to document an ancient tale that had passed unnoticed by many until now, one whispered on windy nights when shadows danced upon cobblestones like fleeting memories. This was the story of Elora, a young maiden whose heart bore witness to love's purity and sorrow's depth during her village's most tumultuous, a rare time where whispers could become screams in moments too swift for tears or mourning cloaks. Henri had heard fragments of this tale, from the lips of an old widow, one whose husband was lost to a great war that tore through their lands like ravenous wolves amid sheep. She spoke with eyes reflecting seasons gone by. Her voice carried both loss and hope as she recounted how Alora's love transcended pain, her beloved handsome but heartbroken soldier, sneaking away to the maiden under moonlight, promising eternal loyalty even when their paths diverged. As Henri delved deeper into his quill-dipped journey through time and ink on parchment, he uncovered tales of resilience within Alora's story of how she nurtured her village back to life with crops that blossomed from the very heartache they held. The chronicle wove itself around a young soldier named Alastair whose love for his sister remained steadfast despite their father's demise, and through an ancient ritual handed down by seers long forgotten who spoke of stars as bearers of fate, a rare alignment that promised hope to the weary souls. The village elders had entrusted Henri with this tale before passing on themselves, but never quite found his hands skilled enough for such a significant narrative until now, when their own time seemed like distant echoes in history's corridor of endless tales. The story spoke not just to the spirits that lingered near Alora's village as her kin sought solace amidst turmoil, but also resonated with Henri himself, a reminder he was a pilgrim on his own journey, penning down lives intertwined by fate's intricate fingers. Henri found comfort in the parallels between Alora and him. Both were keepers of stories, at times overwhelming yet imperative for remembering, faces beneath stars long since faded to whispers against time's canvas. With every word he transcribed, a breath from history's past whispered its secrets into his soul, in affirmation that the present was but another layer in humanity's continuum of existence and loss. Within Alora's story lay echoes similar to Henri's own village, tales where love found ways through war, sorrow within solace, hope amid despair, reminding him how deeply connected lives were across the ages, a shared thread in humanity's tapestry of existence that no mortality could sever. As autumn leaves gave way to winter's touch and frosted breath heralded a time when nature itself seemed an actor on life's stage, Henri continued his dutiful transcription with reverence for the past as he sought solace in knowing these stories would stand against erosion of memory, a legacy entrusted into being by hands both mortal and ethereal. One night, while documenting Alora's tale during a thaw within winter's chilliest clasp, when frost seemed to pause its silent fall upon the window pane, Henri heard from afar an echo of laughter that had not graced his ears for long, or sound reminiscent of childhood summers and tales told with vigor beneath a sun's golden gaze. It was then he realized Alora's story needed to be shared beyond the quiet confines of forgotten history, becoming an anthem amidst the silence that winter often sang too loudly across his own village. With newfound purpose igniting within him like ember heart in ashes retreat, Henri decided upon a grandiose revelation or celebration where tales could be heard not just with ears, but felt deep in one's soul through the heartbeats of those gathered around hearth fires. He envisioned an evening under twinkling constellations as stories were shared and were told by voices rich with life's essence, each narrative thread intertwining like ropes beneath a forest floor, a tapestry woven from many hands across the expanse of time to ensure no tale ever fell silent. As Henri set forth upon this grand quest, he took solace in knowing that tales, such as Alora as Henri journeyed through his village with a lantern casting dancing shadows upon cobblestone streets and underpasses, he felt an inexplicable sense of unity within its quaint architecture that whispered secrets of yore to any soul patient enough to listen. His heart resonated deeply as the cold winds seemed less like winter's harsh gust, but rather a gentle caress carrying tales from afar and near, coaxing him closer with every step towards his destined grandiose revelation he had vowed to unveil in honor of Alora's legacy. The day prior came too swiftly as Henri arranged the village square for the gathering night, when stars above would guide souls and stories below, where history's silent whispers were given voice once more through laughter and empathy shared amongst kin spirits from all walks of life, mortal or otherwise. The lantern he carried flickered not just light, but also hope into the eager eyes that now saw Henri as their very own storyteller, a custodian who'd awaken them with his tales, wherein every word was dipped in warmth and wisdom like honey from an eternal bee. By dusk's embracer time, when night softened the world beneath its shroud of velvet dark save for twinkling lights that mimicked constellations above, flickering gently as if to signal their silent audience's arrival at this congregation under a canopy woven from dreams and echoes. Henri stood in front of his hearth-lit stage upon the square with breath caught between anticipation for what was yet untold and reverence for Alaura's spirit that would soon course through their veins, binding them together as one family beneath history's watchful gaze. He raised a goblet to her memory. "Friends," Henri began in hushed tones laced with the comfort of shared solitude and anticipation for revelations yet undiscovered within each heart's quietude, "tonight we honor not just Alaura, but also every soul that has ever wandered through our village gates or place, where time meanders like a lazy river until it meets the sea of eternity." He pauses and lets his words settle into their ears before continuing. "Her tale is one amongst many threads in this tapestry we call life, yet hers stands out as vibrant green amidst an array that sometimes seems to fade under winter's frosty sigh, a reminder of spring's promise and the warmth it can bring." The villagers leaned forward, captivated by Henri's invocation. They felt a part of something grander than themselves as tales from their own lives began weaving into Alaura's story like autumn leaves adorning her path. Each tale added its hue to the shared narrative that was both singular and universal or mosaic, where each piece, irrespective of form or substance, held intrinsic value in completing a picture grander than anyone could imagine alone. Alaura's spirit danced within this collective memory, as Henri weaved through the chronicles, with eloquence and heartfelt sincerity that touched every soul's core, a mingling of emotions, from joyous celebrations to poignant farewells, like seasons themselves, were in dialogue on his tongue. Laughter echoed more earnestly than before. It was a sound not just shared but felt profoundly, as if the very bonds between them grew warmer and stronger with each story told. For every tale of loss there too sprouted buds of hope that would bloom under summer's benevolent gaze once again in their hearts' gardens. Night deepened its embrace around Henri as he approached the culmination of his narrative journey. Alaura herself stood beside him on stage with an ethereal glow about her, a visage that seemed to transcend time and space itself. She was both present in spirit and absent from flesh. Her voice joined Henri's like waters meeting at confluence after drought, when stories were shared not only as retrospection, but also prophecy, a reminder of cycles within which they found solace, knowing their own tales would one day find resonance with others to come through the echoes in time. "The most extraordinary tale often begins where we least expect it," Alaura whispered into Henri's ear as she stepped away from his side and gestured for him alone on stage before an audience of thousands, not just a handful, but all spirits intertwined by destiny's gentle hands. As Henri stood alone on stage once more, a hush fell over the gathered souls, each one from different ages and epochs, but united by an invisible thread of shared experiences through time's relentless march forward. They had come to listen not just as spectators within their respective timelines, but now found themselves intertwined in this singular moment, a confluence across centuries where Henri's voice was both the anchor and sail on which they would all embark upon reflections of love lost and hope's eternal spring. The air itself seemed to vibrate with anticipation as he began his tale under Alaura's lingering gaze, her presence felt yet not seen, her essence a guiding star for the journey ahead through histories old and new alike. "The most extraordinary tales often begin where we least expect," Henri whispered into one of their own's ear as he turned to face an audience that had grown larger with each word spoken, a mosaic of spirits, some from times long past or far future, yet unborn. It was here in this grand amphitheater woven by fate's intricate loom where Henri found the stage for his next chapter. He cleared his throat and let out a breath that carried with him echoes of life left behind, as if they were all contained within himself, nor vessel overflowing yet able to encapsulate every tear shed in silence during life's relentless trials. Once upon an age not bound by the constraints we call time, Henri began his tale that would unfurl like a delicate bloom unfurling its petals, each fold revealing deeper truth and wisdom about love's complex beauty, or story, as timeless in essence yet ever-evolving with every soul it touched. Henri's voice painted the picture of two souls intertwined by fate, a maiden fair but fraught with unspoken dreams, her heart an open book to those who knew how to read its silent verses, and a gallant knight whose destiny was forever sealed not just in valorous deeds on the field of honor, but also woven into the very tapestry that depicted their joined lives. Their love story began as whispers beneath starlit skies, where dreams could take flight upon wings of night's own fancy and destinies were written by stars. Gentle guidance ere beginning, shrouded in mystery yet destined to be known only through the unraveling threads that Henry would now weave into existence. The knight had embarked on a perilous journey, his path lit not solely by courage, but also guided by an ancient prophecy, foretold of him or love so profound it could mend shattered worlds and heal the deepest wounds wrought upon humanity's heart. It was said that their union would be as rare as a celestial event, yet in Henry's tale such marvellous occurrences were but signposts along life's unpredictable voyage, for love knew neither fear nor hesitation, and sought its own way through the storm to find port upon which it could anchor. In this shared moment of time where past met future, as though fated encounters in a dream, Henry spoke not only their story, but also that they were like all stories told reflections on love's resilience and hope's undying flame within the human spirit which no darkness could ever fully quench. His tale unfolded with each word imbuing his listeners both comfort and shared memories of loss, yet an unyielding belief that such endings are but preludes to new beginnings, for love's melody played on through the ages and resounded within their own souls' deepest halls. The audience listened raptly as Henry wove a narrative not just of two intertwined lives, but also an intricate dance between joyous peaks and valleys that characterized all human connection, or symphony with crescendos of laughter, diminuendos laden with tears. In the endless cycle where each soul's tale was both a mirror to others, parts as well as its own reflection upon still waters deep within their spirit, Henry spoke truths that transcended time and space. Love is not merely an emotion, but life itself, eternally reborn from loss. He paused briefly before continuing on with the grace of a bard who knew his tale was as much about healing wounds within himself as it would be for those in attendance. With each sentence spoken aloud and every soul's heart that swayed, Henry narrated not just stories, but lives lighter in Chapter 11's closing scene, where Henry had left us with a profound sense of unity and cyclical hope. His narrative evolved to embrace not just personal resilience, but also that which is timeless in nature of itself, being reborn from loss. Now, as we delve into the next chapter within the Sleepy Tales tapestry, Henry stood by a gentle stream where water whispered secrets of ancient times, reflecting on how love was not merely an emotion to be experienced, but rather life in its most authentic form or force that endures and evolves even as the seasons change their hues. As he pondered this truth among nature's own symphony, Henry felt a familiar warmth envelop his heart. It wasn't just reminiscence or melancholy, but something more profound stirring within him, the same comforting sensation that had guided humanity through countless generations. The young couple approached the stream's edge hand in hand, their laughter melding with the soft ripples of water as they shared a tender moment beneath Henry's watchful eye. The man turned his gaze upon the horizon where sunrise kissed earth and sea alike, while clasping his beloved's hands ever so slightly tighter, a silent promise made eternal through their presence alone, just like those spoken in stories told long before them but never forgotten within Henry's memories. As evening drew nearer and the sky painted itself with shades of fading gold and deepening indigo, a small child approached Henry, eyes wide beneath matted hair that flowed freely as if to dance alongside her every thoughtful movement or testament to innocence untouched by sorrow or despair. She stopped before him, asking nothing but the warmth he could offer with his words and experiences like hers. In turn, she bestowed upon Henry a reminder of white tales were told beneath open skies instead of within stone walls, because love's true essence thrives where hearts are unburdened. That night under stars that seemed to listen intently as though they too carried the weight of countless silent witnesses, Henry began recounting stories not just from his past, but also those he had heard over time, or collection now entrusted to him like a sacred tome whose pages were ever expanding with each generation's heartfelt tale. One such story was that of an ancient tree which stood tall and proud at the edge where land met sky, its roots entwined firmly within earth's embrace, while branches stretched outward as if to hug all creation back into one, or steadfast guardian against time's relentless march. Henry would tell this tale of resilience through seasons it had seen fall, how even when the world was shrouded in darkness during long winter nights, its leaves still whispered hopeful greetings with each spring sunrise and held on to life's melody until time itself seemed forgotten beneath boughs that swayed not just under wind's caress, but also through memories shared by those who paused at its base. In the heart of a village where generations had passed, there was once an old woman whose wrinkles were etched with wisdom and kindness, or living archived within her very being, that spoke volumes more than any book could hope to express on paper alone. For even without uttering words aloud directly into Henry's ears, but felt through shared glances between the elders seated around their hearth fireside, her stories were like embers glowing brightest when night descended upon them, casting light where shadows sought refuge, and revealing patterns of connection that wove themselves across faces touched by years yet untouched in spirit. Her legacy was one not just told, but lived within the silent music between souls who understood without need for spoken language. As Henry ventured further into his narratives, he would recount tales from far-off lands where love's expression knew no boundaries, or minstrel journeying across desert sands under moonlight to find solace in strangers' eyes, or a painter who captured the essence of passion on canvas using colors as vivid and ephemeral as life itself, transcending mere visual representation for emotional resonance that echoed within hearts, regardless if one spoke their language with Henry's tongue. It was during these stories where he discovered himself a conduit through which love's eternal flame shone brightest. His words were the vessels carrying light across time and space, touching lives even when unseen by those who heard them, but felt deeply within their essence as they sought comfort in shared humanity. Henry realized that though Henry closed his eyes for a moment and inhaled deeply as he prepared himself to continue weaving tales that transcended mere words into experiences, painting pictures of love's boundless hues across time-worn canvases within their gathered company. He began with the story of two lovers separated by war yet united under starlit skies each night, when they whisper promises through open windows until dawn's light was a reminder to return home, where secret kisses were as fleeting and precious as shooting stars in an otherwise clear midnight sky. Their affection defied distance, but remained undimmed by the clamor of cannons. It blossomed quietly like night-blooming jasmine under moonbeams' gentle caress, that spanned oceans to bring solace between hearts beating as one across disparate lands, their bond echoing in Henry's tales. He then described a tale set on the cobblestone streets of old Paris, where love bloomed like cherry blossoms amidst stone and mortar. Two souls joined at heart found refuge not beneath stars, but within candlelit alcoves, their shared whispers weaving through alleys as softly spoken sonnets that time itself seemed to pause upon. It was a dance of shadows, with light playing hide and seek between the bricks and mortar. Henry's voice painted each touch in warmth against cold stone, an embrace within an embrace, where every shared secret became etched into history's endless tapestry. Next came a journey through sun-baked dunes to find camaraderie among strangers as one sought refuge from the relentless blaze of desert noon under skies that stretched like parchment over sand. He spoke of how shared silences between travelers created bridges where language barriers might have built walls. Henry's voice carried their tales on zephyrs, imparting understanding to hearts not yet touched by his tumor silent communion amidst the sifting grains that whispered unity in diversity's grand tapestry across continents and cultures alike. The minstrel then ventured into a tale of two spirits bound together through shared melodies, echoing from ancient Greek amphitheaters, where music was not merely heard, but lived symphony for the soul that soared on breaths drawn deep within chests. It spoke to Henry's essence, as if he himself could feel strings vibrating beneath fingertips and hear horns bellow across valleys, their harmonies wrapping around listeners like a comfort blanket spun from pure emotion. In tales of firelight on cave walls, where ancestral voices painted stories in ochre hues to be felt through the warmth they radiated, a communal memory that transcended eons and languages, Henry shared narratives woven into pigment. Love was a brushstroke as real as it was ethereal. Each story he recounted carried with him an invisible thread of connection to his listeners' hearts, stitching them closer in their collective humanity, regardless if they spoke the same language or hailed from disparate corners of earth's wide embracer. Reminder that love knows no bounds, and its expression is as universal as it is profound. As Henry wove these stories through night's gentle hours, he found solace in knowing his tales were not just heard but felt within the very souls gathered around their hearth fire. They became part of a legacy wherein every word was imbued with love's eternal flame that shone brightest against life's dark tapestry. It illuminated shared humanity, leaving an indelible warmth and understanding in the silent music between souls who spoke without words yet communicated beyond language, a legacy not just told, but lived within each heartful sigh of comfort as they drifted into peaceful slumber under Henri's tender narratives. And so it was that Henri, through tales spun from threads both ancient and luminous with affection's glow, discovered himself not merely a teller, but the keeper of embers in each listener. His stories were vessels for love to touch lives wherein echoes resonated within hearts across all divides. As he concluded yet another chapter beneath twinkling constellations that seemed like lullabies themselves, Henri realized with peaceful certainty that though language had not been spoken aloud this night, understanding and warmth were shared a testament to the silent music between souls where love's flame forever danced. In chapter Roman 14, Henri's tale grew quiet as he delved deeper into a legend that had been passed through generations, or myth about two ancient trees at opposite ends of his village, and how their roots intertwined beneath the ground to share life-giving nutrients. It was said these steadfast guardians understood one another beyond spoken word, communicating in whispers carried by winds or pulses, felt through touch upon the earth's tender skin. Henri described with reverence a day when both trees had stood tall and proud but fell weak from sickness. They trembled as if mourning their own decline while reaching towards each other across vast distances, desperate for succor and silent empathy that transcended sight or sound. As the story wound its way to a close, Henri recounted how one tree had shared with another not only strength but also stories of saplings and seasons past, tales so tender they seemed as if penned by nature itself into blossoms on their bark. In return, the other offered songs, sung through rustling leaves that danced upon a gentle rain's melody when it wept for both ancient beings in sorrowful farewell to its kinship with time and growth, a symphony of life's cycle heard only by those who truly listened. Through Henri's voice, the listeners became witnesses as two entities that had been parted since eternity were united once more through empathy woven into every story told from rote to leaf dip and back again, a connection deeper than any could fathom without their hearts opening wide. It was here in this shared experience of listening, feeling the vibrations against skin as they sank further under his tale's cadence, that Henri felt an awakening within himself. He understood now how to be a storyteller wasn't just about words, but also touching souls with tales that resonated emotionally and spiritually. And so, beneath the blanket of night, where dreamscapes blended seamlessly into reality for Henri's listeners, they found themselves enveloped in an invisible bond as strong and comforting as a warm hug from another human being, or testament to tales' power not only told but lived within. They had become keepers of the legacy passed down through generations, guardians who would ensure that Henri's stories, imbued with love for every heart in their midst, continued echoing softly into eternity, where they danced like fireflies against life's dark tapestry, a beacon to guide and comfort. As the first light of dawn began peeking over distant hills on this pivotal night, when Henri's narrative had blossomed fully, he felt a sense of completion within himself, knowing that his stories would ripple through time like stones cast into life's vast oceans, creating waves wherein those who listened could find themselves in the same waters if they sought solace and understanding with their own tales to tell. It was as though every word he had spoken held a breath of eternity, whispering itself back from ages hence or casting forward into futures yet unwritten. Henri's stories lived on like echoes carried by time's current or river that flowed through the village and beyond its borders to touch all who were willing hearts. And as he gently set down his voice, letting silence fill the space where once only tales had roamed freely between souls entwined in warmth of shared human experience beneath their hearth fire's gentle embracers, Henri witnessed sleep's sweet curtain fall upon each listener like a tender lullaby, cradling them into peaceful repose. He knew that though the words might not have flowed from his lips tonight as they had before under moonlight or sunbeam skies, when tales spun freely and without restraint, the essence of Henri's gift remained untarnished. His stories were vessels for love to touch lives wherein echoes resonated within hearts across all divides, a legacy not just told, but lived by every heartful sigh that found comfort in shared humanity's silent music between souls who spoke without words yet communicated beyond language, a symphony of understanding and warmth, forever dancing upon the strings of Henri's eternal narrative under heaven's watchful eye. As he looked once more to his listeners, resting in peace beside him with no need for spoken farewell as night claimed them into dreamscapes aimward tapestry woven from sleepy threads, and starlit silk stretched out before Henry like a map of the heaven's own design, upon which all would journey together beyond this realm where stories lived in heart. As Henry lay nestled in his cherished armchair before crackling fire that had long ceased its dance with flames, he found himself reflecting on tales of yesteryears and dreams yet to be woven into existence. The hearth's ember glow seemed not just warm, but like the flickering light in his listeners' eyes as they drifted away towards their nightly reveries or comfort, a solace that only stories could provide amidst life's relentless ebb and flow. It was during one such evening when Henry encountered Madeline, an elder whose silver hair gleamed like moonlight upon the water. Her eyes carried depth beyond years, spent under sun and stars alike, keeper of lost tales untold. She had often listened to Henry's narratives with rapt attention, as if each word were a brushstroke on canvas that painted worlds in hues only felt, not seen. Tonight was different. Madeline approached him hesitantly after the others retired into slumbering silence, where his stories once lived and breathed through their shared human connection. She spoke of her father's tales off an old oak tree that stood as a silent witness to countless lovers' trysts in secret glens, its roots tangled with threads spun from the very fabric of time itself. She longed for Henry to capture this legacy within his chronicles. Together they began on their shared quest beneath an indigo sky that stretched infinitely above them, like a curtain awaiting storytelling's call. Madeline's voice, once timid as morning dew upon fragile petals, but now steadied with Henry's gentle guidance, wove the tale of Eleanor and Brantford, love born under the boughs of that very oak which stood sentinel over their union. It was a story of courage against time's cruel march when an emperor sought to tear them asunder for reasons not known but deeply etched into history's tapestry by threads soaked in tragedy and triumph alike. In this recounting, Henry listened closely to Madeline recapturing the essence of her father's remembrances. He felt each word as though it were a memory itself, or treasure unearthed from depths where light self-zero ff through ancient leaves and whispered secrets on how love might endure beyond death's shadow. As they delved deeper, Henry found himself unwittingly transcribing the essence of Madeline's spirit onto parchment, an extension of her father's voice that had lain dormant for decades yet still pulsed with life in tales untold until this moment. The oak stood as a testament to their tale, its bark bearing the etchings like runes inscribed by time itself. Henry knew he was not just recording history, of resurrecting souls bound within it, each leaf and twig an echo of laughter or weep that resonated through generations. The story unfolded as a map, with paths trodden in the footsteps of Eleanor and Brantford leading to moments where love blossomed like spring's first bloom after winter's harsh reignited journey, not foretold but discovered anew within Henry's mind. He chronicled their odyssey, touching upon encounters with fairies who danced around the oak as if to bless love itself, and creatures of law that guided them under starlit skies toward a destiny intertwined like roots beneath soil or legacy, where every sigh found solace in shared humanity's embrace. Henry realized, with each word he inscribed from the wellspring within Madeline's heart and Henry's own soulful reverie under night's canopy of dream-woven stardust, that stories were not merely retellings, but living bridges across which spirits traversed through time. His narrative, though penned in a language beyond words known to him alone, became more than just the tale. It transformed into an immortal testament where love's flame burned undimmed within every heart that ever sought warmth from Henry's hearthfire of tales, or legacy not bound by epochs but eternal as stars themselves. As dawn crept upon their endeavour like a tender-fingered lover, the story reached its zenith, where Aliana and Brantford embraced in an ancient ritual beneath that very oak tree whose heart had throbbed with fearsome emblem of loves. As Henry closed his ancient book and leaned back against the oak that had stood sentinel over countless such encounters, he could not help but feel a profound sense of completion and echoing harmony between heartbeats as Eleanor's presence lingered in memory. The air was crisp with the scent of impending rain and earth. It seemed nature itself approved his narrative's culmination, whispering through rustling leaves that this tale too had its season to flourish before yielding back to time's unwavering march. The next chapter would unfold beneath a moon-flecked sky where the oak stood as their silent witness once more. Night when stars appeared like fleeting thoughts, brilliant yet evanescent against the velvet darkness of prelude and end alike. Henri's fingers found warmth in Eleanor's palm now that he had finished his manuscript by candlelight. Her touch was both an anchor to what they shared and a lifeline thrown backward through time, allowing him glimpses into moments yet unspent between them two souls. He recounted their story as if it were the very breath of life itself, her journey from first meeting serendipity at Branther's cottage to an odyssey through realms that defied mundane reason, where they sought solace in shared silence and found comfort in each other's unvoiced understanding. They encountered spirits who had once danced under these very branchous coasts of a time when love was less tethered by societal chains, freely weaving through the ethereal fabric that now bound them together across realms as though they were never apart at all. Henri's narrative delved into their encounters with beings who wore human guise yet possessed wisdom beyond centuries. He detailed how these entities spoke of love's resilience, a force so potent that it could defy the relentless flow of seasons and eras alike. Together they had laughed beneath starlit canopies, while fairies flitted among flowers, as if to celebrate with them their glowing lights intermingling like threads in an eternal tapestry, binding Henri's heart further still to the narrative he penned in Eleanor's presence. In his recollections, there was no need for explicit language when emotions were painted across every word. It felt as though each sentence drew from a reservoir of feelings too deep for simple expression or love that transcended time itself to become intertwined with the very essence of Henri's being. As he wrote by Eleanor's side, her heart beat in sync with his words flowing onto parchment. They shared an unspoken covenant where trust was their foundation, and every act wove them closer into one another like vines around trellis, stronger as a pair because of the mutual respect that had always been at love's core. The story continued with Henri describing how, in times when worldly troubles sought to cloud his spirit or test Eleanor's resolve, they found sanctuary beneath Branther's ochre place, where their shared humanity shielded them from the harshest winds of fate and fear. He captured tales not only for himself, but as an offering to those who might one day seek refuge in Henri's chronicles. His words were droplets that, when collected with others, voices too tenderly told, could create rivers strong enough to reshape lands worn by sorrow or neglected hope. Henri spoke of the evenings spent beneath Branther, an oasis where time seemed willing at times to pause and breathe more deeply within their shared world. It was in those moments that Henri felt most alive, his heart beating with a passion for storytelling he knew had been inherited from ancient ancestors whose whispers were like echoes of the past. He wrote not just as historian, but as custodian or guardian entrusted by love to record its myriad shades and hues, so that they might never fade into mere memory's shadowy corners. As he recounted their journey, Henri found himself tracing lines of connection between the past Eleanor had lived before his eyes met hers, lineage not just in blood, but also through shared dreamscapes, where history and fantasy intertwined like ivy upon stone walls long forgotten by men. He chronicled how love's embrace offered warmth against night's chill, a flame that flickered fearlessly despite the wind of uncertainty ever present in life. Outside Branther's sheltering in chapter 17 of Henri's Chronicles, he traced back to a night when Eleanor and his own heart had found its rhythm or melody that played across time's strings like an eternal lullaby woven from the very fabric of their souls. It was on such evenings beneath Branther where Henri felt most connected, not only as historian, but also as a keeper of legacies and loves yet to unfold in his narrative's tapestry. On that particular night, when they had first met, an encounter sparked by serendipity under the starlit sky beside Branther's ancient tree-covered grove, Henri was recounting tales of old love and valor as Eleanor listened with an eagerness in her eyes. The air around them hummed softly with a palpable magic that seemed to bridge their worlds, the tangible present where they now walked hand in hand by Branther's tranquil banks, and the ethereal realm of history he so passionately chronicled for those who yearned to feel. Eleanor had been a wanderer through time herself before coming into Henri's life, a traveller whose footsteps were imprinted in epochs long past yet, somehow always returning, as if her spirit was bound by destiny's unyielding thread. She carried with her the echoes of forgotten civilizations and whispered secrets from ages where men rose to be remembered or fell into oblivion under Branther's watchful gaze. With every word Henri wrote, he felt as though they were stepping together through history's hallowed paths. His quill was the key that unlocked tales of yore and love immortalized in echoes within these very grounds where Eliana now walked beside him. His chronicles transcended mere recordings. They became a gateway to understanding how love could blossom amidst adversity, resilience born from loss etched into the collective memory of those who listened attentively at Brantford's threshold each evening as Henri recounted their shared history. Beneath the embrace of an ancient oak, by the clear waters where Eliana and he now lay side by side, her hand resting gently upon his chest, she whispered how tales like these were needed or beacon for souls adrift in time's relentless current. Henri knew then that their own story was but a single thread within the rich tapestry of human experience he sought to preserve through narrative and devotion alike. Their love had been an unexpected chapter, written not by fate alone, but also with intentionality, as two kindred spirits discovered kinship in shared moments beneath Brantford's canopy, where past met present and history danced freely amongst the stars of a tranquil night sky. As Henri penned their story, a tale that intertwined his passion for preserving chronicles with Eliana's spiritually forged bond to time itself, saw how love could be both shield and compass, guiding them through the edges of joyous discovery as well as navigating sorrow's shadow. Their journey was a testament not only to their own enduring affection, but also stood defiantly against history's often harsh lessons, where hope is forged anew in adversity and memory reborn from remembrance alone. He wrote of how Brantford, with its whispered tales etched into the very stones beneath his feet, was a bastion safeguarding not just their love but also those untold stories yearning to be heard, a refuge where heartbeats synchronized like pendulums, swinging in harmony across centuries. In Henri's chronicles lay Eliana, extramural beauty, and the resilience of hope, echoes that reverberated through his narrative, as if Brantford itself were speaking directly to those who would find solace within its pages, an invitation into a world where dreamscapes could be lived once more. As dawn began, heralded by amethyst skies and the faint hoot of an owl, Henri's writing flowed with purpose beyond mere words on parchment. His chronicles were now vessels for voyages across time's vast oceaner legacy that sought to carry forward Eliana's ethereal presence through history even when her physical form would inevitably return. In each stroke of Henri's quill, he honored the past and embraced their shared future with a tenderness only found within love unbounded by time or tragedy. Or chronicle that promised to stand as an et in chapter 18 of Henri's chronicles lay a tale not just about Eliana, but also Brantford's place where her spirit danced among echoes and whispers, binding itself with every heartbeat resonating through its ancient stones. As the first light painted amber streaks across the skies, while Henri penned his thoughts into existence, he delved deeper within these tales of yore to bring forth a narrative that transcended mere words or tapestry woven from memories and dreams wherein Eliana's essence was eternally preserved. The chapter began with Henri recounting the most harrowing night when Brantford had faced its darkest hour, under a celestial ballet of lunar whispers that blanketed it in an ethereal glow during an eclipse long past but not forgotten, a moment where love and hope seemed to flicker precariously. Henri's fingers traced the lines with reverent strokes as he painted Eliana's visage, her laughter a melody that once cascaded through Brantford like sunlight on dew-kissed leaves. It was in this very night, when she had embraced him beneath starlit heavens and promised to return upon his neater pledge made under the cloak of unspoken dreams. Henri's prose flowed with a tranquillity that mimicked the gentle ripple across still waters, as he spoke of Brantford's enduring vigil over their love and those stories it cradled in its hearted guardian to all who sought refuge within. Each chapter was an invitation for souls adrift upon time's vast ocean to find solace at the shores of Henri's creation, where dreamscapes became tangible under his guidance, as if Brantford itself beckoned one and all towards its embracer, siren call promising a refuge beyond reality. As he wove their tale further into existence within these pages, Henri detailed how Eliana's grace had bestowed upon them moments of ephemeral beauty in the harshest winter's night, or under an unforgiving sun during summers, that seemed eternaler testament to love defying not only time but also nature's whims. Brantford, with its whispered histories and untold legends inscribed upon every pebble and petal within the garden of spirits it harbored, had been a sanctuary for their union, an eternal home where Eleanor's touch lingered on his skin like dew clinging to morning blooms. Henri's chronicle took readers through seasons that painted Brantford with hues of transformation or place reborn at each dawn as if by magic, mirroring the renewal found within Eleanor's ever-blossoming presence in his heart. With a stroke here and another there upon paper heaved from history's touch, Henri captured moments where hope arose like phoenix flames amidst adversity, a beacon for those who knew that no darkness could extinguish the light of their shared bond or quell Eleanor's spirit. In this chapter, as amethyst skies heralded daybreak and Henri's words flowed onward like a river nourished by rain-kissed memories, he honored not only Brantford but the legacy of their lover tale that bound them beyond death's veil. It was said among whispers in hushed tones that Eleanor would return to her extramural beauty when Henri had faded into legend himself, a cycle ever turning as eternal as time's own heartbeat, echoed through Brantford and carried forth by the chronicles he penned. The chapter concluded with an understanding that each word written was not just for Eleanor, but also in remembrance of all souls who had traversed their love's path or legacy. Henri sought to weave into history itself, where dreamscapes could be visited through the eyes and hearts he opened within his tales. As Brantford's guardian spirit watched over them both with silent vigilance, it seemed that Eleanor herself was present in every line of text, her essence immortalized by Henri's hand, her love tale to stand as a beacon through the ages and an invitation for eternity. With this chapter's end, readers were left suspended between reality and dreamscapes, where Brantford lived on in every whispered history, and Eleanor remained ever present within each soul that sought refuge beneath its guardianship. As Henri penned his final lines for what would become the chronicles of eternity, he allowed himself a moment to reflect on how Brantford's spirit had always danced through his words, making them more than mere fiction, but rather as vessels carrying the essence of their lover force, unbound by mortality. The story reached its zenith when Henri inscribed Eleanor's most poignant dream within these pages, a night where she glimpsed Brantford's soul, aglow with an ethereal light that promised eternity and transcendence beyond the grave, or spectacle witnessing by none but her own heart. The chapter wove through Henri's memories of his beloved Eleanor in this dream world. She danced upon a field where flowers bloomed with colors unseen, beneath skies ablaze not just with sunlight, but also the luminescence born from their love's purity. There was laughter here and there among friends who shared similar tales of reunion or celebration that did not start nor end within these dreamscapes, as Henri learned in this chapter, for each night brought a different echo to the same melody. Brantford's presence always felt warm beside Eleanor's heart. A revelation unfurled itself from Henri when he realized his true purpose, that through recounting their love and its eternal afterlife within these pages, he provided solace for others, or connection to the beyond, where spirits continued in tales of those who once loved deeply on earth's soil. Their legacy would forever be encapsulated not only by what was written, but also felt with each reader's heartstrings that resonated through time and space upon touching his words, as Henri had always known Eleanor to return when he slept, her perpetual guardian angel, within the sanctuary of dreams. As dawn approached on this fateful night wherein both authors knew they would soon join their beloved in afterlife's embrace, a final thought lingered with Henri, that Brantford's spirit and Eleanor's essence have found permanence not just within the chronicles he left behind, but also living on through every heart touched by these stories. The chapter closed as readers were drawn into this world of dreamlike realities where love transcended life, with Henri's final words painting a picture of an afterlife that mirrored their own shared moments or place they had often spoken about in whispers yet felt profoundly close to each other. The guardianship spirit took note as the chapter's end brought forth images not just from this world, but also echoes where Brantford lived on, his legacy on War 018D, an invitation for eternity that Henri had now become a part of through the chronicles of eternity. With each word written and every soul moved by the story's enduring love tale, readers found themselves inexplicably drawn to these pages, their connection made not with just paper, but also spirit. And as they closed their eyes at nightfall, a whispered invitation from Henri beckoned them back into dreamland where Brantford and Eleanor awaited beyond the veil of mortal life, an eternal love tale bound within time's own heartbeat, or legacy that could never fade. The chapter concluded with readers suspended between worlds, each personification a guardian to this extraordinary union now immortalized through Henri's gifted storytelling. In their hearts lay the promise of an afterlife where love lived on in eternal beauty and grace, an invitation from Brantôr's spirit that Eleanor would return when time itself seemed suspended, a perpetual dance between past affections and future dreamscapes ever more vibrant under Henri's watchful pen. As readers turned the last page of this chapter in the Chronicles of Eternity, they were left with an indelible mark upon their souls, a place where love, undying as time itself, had found its sanctuary within these bound leaves, a testament to Henri's devotion and Brantôr's enduring spirit. And so the cycle continued in perpetuity through history books that whispered tales of eternal affection across generations, or legacy written by Henri into infinity, where Eleanor awaited him with silent vigilance whenever he slept among his beloved flowers, as once they had done together under their shared suns. With this chapter's conclusion resonating through the corridors of time and memory alike, each person became a part of Brantôr's tale, or bridge spanning life here to Et. In chapter 2010 of the Chronicles of Eternity, Henri's journey took a serene turn as he nestled among his beloved garden, where each petal and leaf seemed to whisper secrets from Brantôr's ethereal realm. The golden light filtered through the canopy above as if time itself had slowed its relentless march within these hallowed grounds of nature's embrace. Here Henri found a connection that transcended mere words on paper, touching something deeper and more elemental in his solar conduit for Brantôr's immortal love. Henri often wandered through the garden at dusk when shadows grew long across dew-kissed grass. It was then he felt closest to Brantôr's presence, as if their spirits danced in unison with each other and time itself stood still for a moment of pure connection. The air here carried echoes from centuries past, or love that had endured through eras where mankind rose and fell like the tides, yet remained steadfastly anchored to this sacred earth, blooming within Henri's narrative garden forevermore in his stories penned by hand under moonlit inspiration. As he traced a finger along the delicate veins of an ancient oak leaf one evening, a relic from Brantôr's world that had taken root among these very flowers and trees centuries before Henri's own birth, felt as if each stroke carried weight, imbuing him with more than just botanical knowledge. Instead, it was a silent communion of past whispers melding into the present moment. Tales spun by Brantôr's spirit found new life in his heart and flowed through Henri onto pages that would become timeless vessels for this ageless love story, a tapestry woven with threads from both worlds. The garden's enchantment drew even more visitors, all of them bearing the same silent promise etched within their souls, to honor Brantôr's legacy by cherishing and upholding his indelible bond through Eleanor, that now waited in spirit for Henri beyond this realm. There were those who came seeking solace, or place where lost loves could find peace, or perhaps a way back into the warm folds of shared affection before time claimed them from each other's grasp once more. Henri would listen and smile as they recounted their own stories. Some spoke of love never quite reaching beyond its seasonal bloom, while others bore tales where even death could not sever an unbreakable thread that wove together hearts across life. 0 times her testament to a connection Brantôr had gifted them in life, and now continued after his passing. As seasons cycled from blossoming spring petals, surrendering themselves gently at the mercy of time's breath, into autumnal leaves that painted landscapes with fiery hues before succumbing to a final rest beneath their own soiler, cycle reflected within Henri's very essence. He had become as much part of this eternal garden, his stories its living roots and vines reaching towards immortality, ensuring Brantôr's voice echoed through the generations like an undying summer breeze, whispering tales into willing ears. Within these hallowed grounds, where past affection lay interwoven with present communion, each person carried a piece of Brantôr's eternal spirit within them. Their love for Henri, too, transformed by this sacred connection, was bound to the perpetual dance between realms that he chronicled. And as each visitor took leave and departed from his sanctuary amidst nature's tender embrace, he carried back more than just memories or tales of longing. They bore fragments of a love so profound it transcended their ephemeral existence, now living on within Henri's chronicles. The garden itself seemed to pulse with life and energy, as if Brantôr's spirit resonated in every leaf that rustled or flower that bloomed, or sacred place where souls could commune with a love untarnished by the ravages of time. An ethereal bridge between realms. Henri's heart knew its purpose here, to be both keeper and scribe for Brantford's legacy, his own existence now entwined inextricably within this eternal garden where each word he wrote was a seed that grew into stories of love immortalized through the ages, just as Aliana had become one with him. So it came to pass on an evening like no other when Henri inscribed his final tale or narrative, enriched by all who walked these gardens. Before this evening had been unlike any other because today's visitors left with something more profound than they could have anticipated, a sense of peace and a connection that defied explanation through the mundane workings of their worldly lives. As Brantford's garden sanctuary, it was Henri's responsibility to capture these moments in words. His purpose had always been clear: preserve love eternalized within this living testament so future generations might feel its warm embrace too. Henri often found himself lost for hours on end as he wrote about the day's happenings, but tonight was different, felt a tug in his heart that something monumental had occurred here today. The visitors themselves seemed changed. Their eyes held glimmers of understanding and acceptance beyond mere human comprehension or desire after being touched by Brantford's spirit within the garden's enchanting presence, where time folded upon itself like origami creatures under a child's delicate touch-ships that could not be broken nor bent. As he pondered over his next tale, to inscribe into history and eternity alongside Brantford's legacy of love stories, Henri knew each word carried the weight of centuries within it. Every stroke was an act with repercussions as far-reaching as distant galaxies, yet invisible threads connected him across time. The visitors who had come seeking solace in nature's embrace were now leaving not just with memories, but a sacred charge to carry Brantford's spirit forward into the future, where love would remain untainted by decay or tragedy, a beacon of hope within their lives and beyond. Tonight had been an evening when Henri felt his soul's purpose aligned perfectly with that enduring essence he sought to document. It was time for him to pen down the day's extraordinary events as a testament, not just to Brantford, but also himself, for in doing so he would become part of something larger than life itself. Henri took up his quill once more and began writing with renewed vigor under the comforting gaze of stars that had borne witness to countless tales before him. They were silent guardians over this hallowed ground where realms converged and souls found solace amongst blooming flowers, whispering leaves, and dancing shadows. Henri's quill flowed across the parchment as if guided by Brantford's spirit itself, a story not just of a day, but an era when love transcended its natural bounds to become something ethereal yet tangible within these sacred confines, where every visitor left with their essence intertwined. His narrative began in the familiar cadence that had always defined his writing style. As twilight kissed the garden goodbye and Henri watched as visitors departed one by one into the night's embrace, he felt an overwhelming sense of responsibility settle upon him like a cloak. His quill hovered above parchment, once again a vessel for Brantford's enduring spirit that coursed through every living thing within this hallowed garden, and now imbued Henri's very being with purpose beyond his comprehension. The story he would write tonight was not just a tale, but an ode to the transcendental nature of love in its purest form. It had been foretold that upon completion, Brantford's garden and legacy would forever remain untarnished by time or place, where souls could commune with eternal affection immune to worldly suffering or strife. Henri's role as scribe became clear. Not only was he a chronicler of events, but also an inheritor of Brantford's sacred duty. As the last visitor waved goodbye beneath his window, Henri knew that tonight marked something special, a turning point in both himself and for this beloved garden where spirits roamed free amongst nature's bounty. It was time to begin writing with all he had inside him now infused into every word. With a deep breath of the cool night air filling his lungs, Henri allowed Brantford's spirit no undeniably entwined within himself. Henri's hand trembled slightly as he lifted his quill once more to parchment, a familiar sensation, yet tonight seemed different somehow. An unfamiliar weight rested upon him, not just in spirit, but also within each fibre of being that composed himself. The garden had been a refuge for souls, like Henri's, since Brantford's time when he first planted the seedling from which the sacred place grew, a haven where love knew no bounds, and pain was unknown, its very essence intertwined with every living thing within these hallowed grounds. As night embraced him once more, Henri found himself drawn to a particular part of Brantford's garden that seemed always shrouded in darkness yet aglow with an ethereal lighter place where the fragrant petals and vibrant foliage felt as though they were alive. The air here was thick with unspoken stories, each leaf whispering tales of love given freely despite life's trials. Their roots ran deep into Brantford's legacy that he aimed to capture in his narrative tonight, a tale not just about the past, but one for a future where hearts could meet without fear. Henri closed his eyes, and with each breath of night air filling him like warm honey on skin chilled by moonlight's kiss, every scent that drifted from these blossoms seemed to draw out an inner harmony he had thought lost among the cacophony of worldly concerns. The garden was his refuge, a sacred space where Brantford's spirit mingled freely with Henri's own essence, gift not just for this present moment, but one that would echo through time itself as long as love continued to flourish within these walls. The quill moved of its own accord across the parchment, and the words began flowing effortlessly from his pen without him needing to guide them, and alas, if Brantford himself had returned for this singular purpose. Henri felt a sense of peace he hadn't known in years wash over him. This tale would be more than just prose on paper, but an immortal ode that celebrated every heartbeat within the garden, each beat resonating with love so pure it could only exist beyond mortality's reach or story, to remind all who heard its echoes of what truly mattered in this fleeting existence. The whispers among plants had always been Henri's solace during moments when his heart felt heavy. Now they seemed louder and clearer than ever before, as if amplified by Brantford's presence that permeated every drop of dew on each leaf, or symphony to which only the soulful could truly attune themselves. The garden was a sanctuary where time itself bowed in reverence, allowing Henri to weave tales not just with words, but also through shared experiences and untold emotions that resided deep within his own heart. He had always sought solace amongst these living sculptures of nature's finest artistry. As the moon reached its zenith high above him like a beacon for lost souls, Henri felt an indescribable connection, or thread woven through time and space, that linked every creature who called Brantford's garden home. Their stories would become his legacy as he honored them with this ode to love's enduring power. The last visitor had departed beneath the crescent of night, leaving Henri alone in a tranquil embrace, or solitary figure surrounded by an audience that no longer needed voices or words, but only felt and remembered through shared essence. They would understand his tale without needing to speak as long as this sacred duty was fulfilled. Henri's fingers danced upon the parchment, each stroke a testament to Brantford's undying love that transcended mere existence, a call for all who had known such affection within these hallowed bounds, and those yet unborn souls whose hearts were not acquainted with this pure form of connection. The garden was both his muse and confidant, providing silent encouragement as Henri poured out the words from a place where spirit melds seamlessly into earthly vessel or narrative that would stand eternal beside Brantford's own legacy within these enchanted walls. It bore witness to an immutable truth. Love was both anchor and compass, guiding souls beyond this realm. The garden itself seemed sentient tonight, as if aware of its role in Henri's task, nurturing his spirit with each rustle that caressed the air like a gentle breeze through fingers swaying to an unheard melody. It stood proudly beneath a sky painted with strokes of twilight, and whispered farewells to daylight's embrace. Henri paused his penmanship as he gazed upon the garden, an ever-present spectator in this nightly ritual of creation. Its petals seemed softer tonight. Its air carried a scent that was both intoxicating and soulful, urging him to continue weaving tales from roots deep within history's embrace. He wandered among the fragrant blossoms as memories cascaded through his mind like dew upon velveteen rose, or time when Brantford first met Elira in a world where love knew no bounds, beyond mere flesh and blood to touch eternity. Henri's heart ached for the beauty of such an undying bond that transcended their years together. His own life had been too fleeting, but through this tale he hoped they might never be forgotten or lost like whispers in a tempest thunderous night. The garden responded, its rustling leaves composing symphonies as if to mimic the cadence of Henri's inner reflections, or harmonious blend that only nature could conduct without falter nor fade under time's relentless march forward. Each step he took was a silent promise between his feet and earth, each breath drawn in rhythm with life's eternal dance beneath the cosmos, where even stars listened for stories of love sung by mortal tongues. The ancient oak at the heart of this verdant sanctuary stood as sentinel over Henry's endeavours, or steadfast guardian whose gnarled roots delved deep into memories, soaked in sunlight and shadow alike, while its branches offered shelter from life's tempests. It was here that Brantôr had penned the first of many sonnets dedicated to Elira. Beneath this very canopy an act is timeless within these enchanted walls where spirits found solace in their shared legacy, a testament not only written but lived, felt through each petal and leaf. Within Henry's narrative was the garden itself personified. It cradled hearts with hands wrought from tendrils of ivy that embraced stone statues carved by time-worn sculptors long vanished to dust's eternal slumber, its soul whispering secrets through murmuring brooks and hushed breezes, carrying the laughter molded into echoes between ancient ruins, where once grand feasts for Brantôr's beloved Elira had unfolded in celebration of love. As Henri continued to inscribe, his words flowing like a stream nurtured by generations, longings and sorrows alike, the very air seemed thick with anticipation, or tapestry being woven from threads invisible yet palpable within this sacred garden, where every bloom bore witness. The night deepened its hues as Henry's quill glided over parchment, each stroke a delicate petal unfurling to reveal the essence of Brantôr's soul. Love not just remembered, but lived, an undying flame flickering in eternity itself, a beacon for souls wandering through darkness seeking warmth. The garden's sentience became more apparent as Henri wrote about their first meeting, a time when the world seemed larger and fuller of wonders unexplored, but still ripe with possibility, where Brantôr's eyes had met Elira's in an instant that promised forever, a promise made manifest through this tale's telling. Their love story unfolded within these walls as one does not simply read a book, for here it was experienced deeply and intimately. Every season their lives were mirroring seasons of the garden itself, blossoms blooming with youthful exuberance, only to wilt under time's heavy hand or stand resilient against adversity's stormy wind. Henri paused as he penned a passage on Brantôr and Elira dancing beneath this very oak, the moonlight casting silver upon their intertwined forms, their spectacle of devotion that time could not erode nor distance dilute. Such was love's testament in these hallowed grounds. The garden seemed to sigh around him as if bending its back against his chest with comforting embraces, and Henri found himself wrapped within a cocoon woven from the very essence of their shared past or sanctuary, where time stood still amidst tales that spanned limpid zeros. As he wrote about Brantôr's final moments, when Elira was as Henri's quill danced across parchment under his steady gaze, he etched into being a memory that would become legend within these ancient walls. It was during one of Elira's rare absences, when Brantôr and she found solace in the arms beneath their beloved oak tree. Henri recorded how time seemed to fold upon itself as they shared laughter, whispered dreams into each other's ears with every leaf that rustled, a soft serenade of affection on this sacred night. He saw love's true form or force not bound by the physicality, but rather anchored in moments like these. The oak tree stood as an unwavering sentinel, its ancient limbs cradling history itself, and now serving once more to host a tale of enduring passion. Henri described how each carved initial on their wedding day had since deepened into grooves that told tales her testament, not just for the couple, but also as mementos within these walls, where every element was imbued with significance and purpose beyond mere decoration or utility. He knew this story would be a legacy. Henri pondered over Elira's final moments, when she lay alone in her bedroom after Brantôr had passed away unexpectedly, her heart attack that struck as swiftly as lightning, leaving Henri's world dizzyingly empty without his beloved presence beside him. The garden seemed to mourn silently around them. Flowers drooped their heads like children with hushed sobs in the moonlight's glowing embrace, and leaves whispered secrets of resilience through Elira's open window, as if trying to reach out for her healing touch. In his heartache, Henri felt a sense of responsibility not just towards Brantôr's memory, but also in preserving the essence that had once flourished here between them. And so it became more than mere storytelling through this garden's recounting. Each tale was an act of reverence for love lost, yet everlastingly present within these stones. As he wrote about Elira's nightmare-like vision, where Brantôr appeared as a phantom figure during her last hours or dreams she had shared with him in youthful days beneath this very oak tree, when they first became enamored, the words flowed like tears onto his page. She saw them standing once more atop that hill overlooking the garden, their hands still clasping tightly as though time itself could not sever what fate would ordain to be a fleeting heartbeat in this world's grand tapestry of life and love or vision so vivid, Henri felt he too was there with them. When Elira woke from her sleep-like state shrouded by the darkness that nighttime always brought forth for its mysteries to unfold, she found herself surrounded not only by Branther's lingering presence but also an overwhelming sense of peace, as if both were guardians watching over her. She wrapped her arms around this solace and allowed it cradle her spirit just like the garden embraced their love through each season's ebb and flow, a constant reminder that even when one soul departs from another's physical form, they remain forever interwoven in shared experiences, dreams whispered into a night sky studded with stars of memory. Henri knew the garden itself held secrets as old as time, where flowers once bloomed before cities and civilizations were conceived, or silent witness to countless human stories like his own. He felt privileged in documenting this chapter for future generations who might seek solace here after Branther's untimely departure. The finality of death was not an end, but rather a transformation into legend and law that would live on through Henri's tales, or legacy etched within the heartbeats encapsulated by nature itself. His words were bridges between worlds both seen and unfathomable to mortal eyes. As morning approached with gentle tenderness, breaking across horizon's edge like a painter releasing her masterpiece from night's shadowy embrace onto the canvas of daylight, Henri allowed himself one last gaze upon his work before setting aside pen for respite. He understood now more deeply that in this garden rested not only their memories, but also those yet unwritten tales, as future visitors would find solace and perhaps even answers to questions left hanging like dewdrops on spider's silk. For Henri, his role was Cleito capture, the essence of love's enduring spirit within these walls. It wasn't merely about recount, as Henri settled into his weathered wooden chair that had been a constant companion through years of sunny days and stormy nights. He let out a content sire sound like leaves rustling in an autumnal breeze. The garden around him was abuzz with the chattering sparrows as they flitted from bloom to budding flower under the watchful gaze of his beloved oak tree. Henri's heart felt lighter, yet he knew there were tales that still needed weaving into existence, histories beyond what time had already told and whispered through the garden's ancient bones. His fingers traced along the delicate petal as though it was braille inscribed with untold secrets of past loves, lost friends, and even those who'd come before him in different forms but left their essence imprint upon his soul like the gentle etching on stone. Henri remembered Branther's laughter echoed through this sacred space, not just during daylight hours, when sun rays filtered lazily between green leaves. It reverberated under moonlit skies, a lullaby for night dwellers that seemed to carry their shared joy into eternity. The garden had been more than mere scenery, it was the heartbeat of his life alongside Branther's, and now held silent witnesses in its blossoms and bloom buds, each a keeper of stories whispered on passing winds. They were history's custodians. Henri imagined himself as an archivist of these tales, or chronicler who had transcended the simple act of recording events to capture emotions that painted every moment with its hues and shades, much like how morning dew captured colors from the sky before it kissed them goodbye into daylight. As he thought on this legacy within these walls, an unbreakable thread binding souls across time's vast tapestry, Henri felt the comforting weight that was his purpose here among memories, and dreamt to be stories alike, knowing the garden's role as guardian of past and future echoed in eternity. A solitary teardrop melded with dew on ivy leaves, or poignant reminder of Branther's loss that even time could not erode from Henri's heart, nor the garden's embrace ease his ache. Their love was immortalized in every drop and petal. Yet, as he looked upon them all one last time before leaving for rest, himself for reprieve, to replenish what energy had been spent on chronicling such narratives that seemed almost too vast, Henri realized the garden's tales were not only recorded, but also lived within its very essence, a living museum where each visitor could touch history with their fingertips. In his mind's eye, he saw visitors of all ages come to this sanctuary seeking answers or solace that eluded them in the outside world, or place where stories came alive through Henri's words and lived on within nature itself as much as they were told. Each story a petal contributing its unique color to life's ever-blooming garden. He whispered farewell. Our love is here now, knowing that even after his departure from this earthly realm he would continue narrating their shared history and Brantford's legacy with the same ardor as if penning each word on fresh parchment or timeless dance of memory twirling through Henri's stories, with a heart fuller than before for having penned such tales that might one day provide comfort to others. He rose from his chair and made way towards the cool shade beneath an ancient willow tree where time seemed irrelevant. Its drooping branches offered refuge not only in physical form but also as shelter against solitude. There under nature's embrace, Henri closed his eyes one final time upon this sacred space or haven of whispers and silent screams alike that he had so diligently chronicled into being for the hearts seeking it now or those yet to come, a testament to love's enduring spirit within these walls. The garden, with its hidden tales etched in every leaf's vein, would forever be a bridge between worlds seen and unseen, or sanctuary where souls could transcend the temporal plane through stories told under moonlight or caressed by morning sunshine. Henri's legacy was not to end here, but continue as long as blooms dared unfurl their colors in defiance of time's relentless march. And with that thought, he let sleep take him or journey as Henri closed his eyes one final time. Under the ancient willow's embrace in chapter 25, he allowed himself to be carried away on a gentle breeze that whispered through its leaves like tender caresses of an old friend. The night sky was adorned with stars, as countless and distant as the stories they bore witnessed our reminder of how each shining point in time held tales yet untold, awaiting their turn under Henri's seasoned penmanship. The murmurings within him subsided when he opened his eyes once more, not because sleep had eluded him, but rather that it seemed the right thing to do, nor fitting conclusion for an evening spent among tales of enduring love and timeless bonds woven into the very fabric of history. Henri drew a deep breath as if inhaling inspiration itself before he began his journey back through time, where every chapter ended was also but a prelude to another beginning. In chapter 26 it became clear that this night's storytelling would not be confined by the boundaries of Henri's own experiences alone. Instead, these tales had lives beyond their authorship or legacy, entrusted into perpetuity through his words and memories penned with passion. The garden in which he sat remained a sanctuary for all who sought solace within its bounds or shared communion under the celestial tapestry above, transcending mere physical presence to become an ethereal meeting ground of souls intertwined by Henri's narratives and human connection. As dawn approached with stealthy steps on the horizon, breaking through night's embrace like a hesitant lover uncertain about revealing true intentions upon renewed commitment, so too did memories stir within Henri, a gentle awakening of recollections that had lain dormant during his daytime hours. The first rays pierced the canopy above and danced across dew-laden leaves below. A symphony composed by nature itself played upon each droplet, amplifying their refractive beauty into an iridescent masterpiece that glistened in gratitude for Henri's presence within this sacred space. With the sunrise as his backdrop and inspiration drawn from life's simple yet profound wonders before him, chorus of birdsong melding seamlessly with the rustle of leaves beneath footfall, an orchestra conducted by Mother Nature herself, Henri felt renewed purpose stirring within. It was time to awaken those who had found refuge in his stories and offer them guidance through their own journeys. It became a calling that transcended even love's most enduring spirit, which he so cherished as the heart of all narratives penned with earnest fervor across generations past. The garden's ancient trees stood sentinel around Henri, witnesses to his pilgrimage through time and testament to tales that transcended mere mortal existence, their bridge between realms, both seen and unseen, where souls could traverse in search of wisdom or solace sought after within the embrace of a cherished memory. Under their watchful gaze, Henri recounted stories born from his youth. Echoes resonated through time as if each word had been etched into existence long before he ever set pen to paper, a testament not only to love's resilience, but also the power of shared human experience when told with genuine heart. He spoke now, a seasoned raconteur whose voice carried across ages like ripples upon still waters. His tales were threads that stitched together fragmentary memories into tapestries rich in texture and hue or legacy, born from the deepest wellsprings of emotion, where Henri drew forth inspiration with unwavering certainty. As he wove narratives spanning lithic zeros, cultures, and epochs before him became his own reality within this verdant haven, an awakening, unfolded like a blooming flower, each petal revealing secrets hidden beneath layers of time, where Henri's legacy would continue to flourish as long as storytellers dared invoke the transformative magic imbued in tales that transcended mere words. Within this sacred space, souls from all walks of life found themselves drawn to through a confluence guided by stories whispered beneath moonlit skies or caressed under morning sunshine. Henri's presence a beacon illuminating paths through the labyrinth of existence, where love and memory intertwined in an intricate dance. And so, with each tale recounted beneath branches heavy with history, each word uttered once upon a time in this haven of tales and legends whispered through generations, Henri found himself surrounded by an eager audience gathered beneath the ancient oaks that stood like silent guardians over his verdant sanctuary. The crowd was as varied as it was vibrant: children with eyes wide open to wonderment, elders who wore wisdom in their gentle smiles and lines etched deep into kind faces. All were drawn by an invisible thread of curiosity towards the master storyteller before them. With a serene smile touching his lips that hinted at both reverence for tradition and warmth from within, Henri took to center stage, as if it was always meant only for him, a place where he could let go in the flow of narrative rivers without fear or hesitation. His voice began with an invocation not unlike those heard by ancient listeners before electric lights ever flickered on their nightstands. My friends, we gather here under this canopy that has cradled countless stories upon its boughs. I am but a humble vessel for the timeless tales you seek. Let us embark together once more into realms uncharted and lands forgotten as far back in time as human memory reaches. Henri's first tale took him to the era of great pharaohs, where life thrived along the banks of a mighty river that nourished an empire. The sun-scorched sands bore witness to his recounting, a chronicle rich with adventure and discovery, as he spoke of expeditions across arid expanses in search of treasures hidden deep within pyramids, where whispers echo through corridors carved by hands that shaped a legacy. As the warmth from Henri's tales seemed to envelop his audience, they transported themselves back and forth between epochs. A whirlwind tour led with purposeful nostalgia as he shared stories of Renaissance artistry, where brushes danced in passionate strokes on canvas under candlelight. The scent of oil paints mixed into the air while Henri described masterpieces that captured not just a moment, but an essence so profound it transcended its creator's era, inspiring souls to find depth within their own fleeting lives in this very greenery, where he now stood, a place woven with threads of humanity. Henri drew upon the echoes from his next tale that led him across oceans and continents into a world painted by explorers whose eyes gleamed at horizontal mysteries, their ships cutting through mist-shrouded waters in search for new lands to tame with ambition. He spoke of brave hearts who charted unknown territories, where the sun dipped its fiery hues into seas vast, as dreams are testament not only to human resilience, but also the relentless pursuit that threads through our shared history like a golden yarn spinning across generations in his sanctuary. The storyteller then paused, allowing silence to settle over them before weaving into an intimate narrative of love or tale so personal it seemed as if Henri had once lived this very moment himself beneath these same trees that now listened silently around him. He spoke softly, yet with a strength felt in the marrow by all who heard, painting pictures of tender glances exchanged amidst crowded pyres, or quiet moments stolen under starlit skies, where love's true colors were revealed, or spectrum beyond mere words, that Henri shared as if he himself had once been there. As his storytelling journey unfolded chapter by heartfelt chapter, the essence of humanity shone through with each word spoken like lantern lights along a moonlit pathway leading to understanding and empathy among listeners diverse in background, that united under Henri's spellbinding narrative. The tales he told became not just stories etched into memory. They were as if the very souls of those who had lived them could be felt amidst rustling leaves, or communal heartbeats synchronizing with his storytelling cadence, each beat a shared human experience that transcended time and space. Henri's tales then shifted to encompass revolutions, where whispers turned into roars of freedom as he spoke about the spirits who dared not only dream but act upon their convictions, their footsteps echoing through history in a dance for equality that Henri articulated with such passionate detail it seemed his own ancestors might have been among them, fighting alongside him under this canopy, where once they had gathered to listen and learn. The storyteller paused again as the night deepened its shadows around the man, gentle reminder of time as Henri's voice trailed off into silence, with each tale spun of bravery and longing beneath that ancient canopy. He found himself standing at a crossroads between past echoes and future wisps, latter calling him to delve deeper into the annals, where history was not just told but experienced. His listeners, drawn together by threads of shared humanity woven through his stories, leaned forward with bated breath as Henri prepared himself for one final chapter that promised a journey back in time when tales were indeed lived and breathed. He whispered promises to the night before embarking on this new odyssey. The dawn crept upon them like an intruder of light stealing through velvet curtains, leaving behind only memories hanging heavy as dew-kissed cobwebs in Henri's mind and heart. At his backdrop, storytelling sessions had begun to dissolve into the ether. Yet something within him refused to let go of knowledge that stories are living entities themselves, breathing with each telling, growing beyond their teller's reach as they resonate through souls across generations. Henri decided then and there he would not merely be a storyteller any longer, but become the very embodiment of history within his tales, to honor those who had lived before him in this sacred space where once stood revolutionaries, dreamers, lovers or pilgrimage for every listener present as they all sought solace from time's relentless march. So began Chapter 28, the eternal flame of passion and purpose, with Henri recounting a tale not just about individuals, but the embodiment of their spirits, where he guided his listeners to feel every emotion as if it were an electric current flowing through the conduit for raw human energy. He spoke firstly of love's unspoken language that transcended words and reached out into eternity with the same fervency a hearth fire consumes kindling, bringing warmth to all who basked in its glow, without fear or judgment or beacon against even darkness itself. The tale unfolded as Henri introduced his audience to Marie-Jeanne, whose heart was shaped like an open rose amidst thorns of adversity. Her love for Jean was a force that defied the very laws which sought its destruction, and became legendary when it led them both into uncharted paths or journeyed through fields where only freedom's whispers dared to tread, echoing with every step towards self-determination. Within Henri's narrative, he painted scenes of candlelit salons where philosophers and poets debated beneath flickering shadows. Here the revolutionaries were not merely figments but spirits that lived through his words, or vibrant tapestry depicting a time when every breath was charged with purpose as they wove dreams into tangible strides towards liberty, each threaded word binding them closer in shared resolve for change. As the tale progressed and twilight gave way to Henri's storytelling flame that seemed eternal within his audience's eyes, a reflection of firelight on distant horizons, yet unseen by these souls rooted firmly amidst ancient pines where history was not merely recounted but lived, he paused. The night had woven itself into a cloak around them all, and Henri looked upon each face with reverence for the shared heartbeat that now danced within their chests, or syncopated rhythm of human experience connecting past to present in an unbroken chain, where every listener stood as both witness and participant. This, Henri whispered softly, his voice barely carrying over a hush charged with anticipation for the next chapter that promised not just stories, but revelations or journey backward through time, imbuing them all with immortality within tales of flesh and blood, heroes and their undying legacies. And so, as Henri drew his listeners deeper into a world where every heartbeat was history in motion beneath the starlit skies that had borne witness to eons, where love's true colors were always revealed not just on canvas, but within souls intertwined by fate and choice alike. The communal spirit, once awakened with Henri's tales of passionate resolve for freedom from a time when such aspirations were revolutionary themselves, now pulsed in unison, as if each listener bore the torch that had guided their ancestors, or sacred flame within them fanned by every word spoken in shared experience. The final words Henri spoke felt like threads being woven into a tapestry of